From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
When members of Congress decide how to vote on a bill, they should be voting based on what they think is best for the American people, not what is best for their investment accounts. When members of Congress come here, they should not be able to profit off of inside information that the average American and the average market participant does not have access to.
Congressman Seth Magaziner championing a bipartisan bill that would ban members of Congress from buying and selling stocks. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Magaziner was joined by an unlikely coalition of lawmakers, including Texas Republican Chip Roy and progressive Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Now, Magaziner is one of the lead sponsors of the bill, and he recently sat down with our Ted Nesi about why a trading ban is important and why it has strong bipartisan support.
Congressman Magaziner, thanks for taking a few minutes to sit down with me to talk about this issue. It's a hot topic and has been for a while now. Can you just summarize? I know there's different bills and there'll probably be tweaks as it goes through the legislative process, but at a high level, what is your goal that a bill would do in the end if it passed and became law?
Everyone knows Washington is broken. Corruption and self-dealing are out of control. And what my bill would do is ban members of Congress from trading stocks. This is important because as members of Congress, we have access to all kinds of inside information about what may be in a bill or not in a bill, things that can impact the performance of the stock market. And it is unfair for members of Congress to be using their positions to trade off of inside information and profit. Also, when we are making decisions about how to vote on bills, we should be making decisions based on what we think is the best thing for the country, not what we think is the best thing for our investment portfolios. And so my bill would ban members of Congress from trading stocks to remove that conflict of interest, to remove that opportunity for corruption so that Congress can start working better again for the American people.
So, I've definitely heard different points of view on this over the years. Some people saying, well, it's not, people aren't really corruptly trading on inside information. It's just a perception issue with the public. Where do you come down on why this is important? Is it truly important, or is it just, even if there's no smoke there, the public is worried about it, so we got to do something?
I don't know how, if you have inside information about what is going on behind closed doors, what might be in a bill or not in a bill to regulate the pharmaceutical industry or regulate the tech industry, how do you not have that knowledge impact your decision making when you're deciding how to invest your money, right? And so the opportunity for corruption is clearly there. If you know that you are invested in tech stocks or pharma stocks or what have you, and you're having to make a decision about how to vote on a bill that impacts those industries, how does that knowledge not impact your judgment? And so again, I'm not suggesting that every single person who goes into elected office is corrupt, but I am suggesting that there is a fundamental tension there when members of Congress are charged with passing bills to regulate industries, but are also invested in those same industries. There is absolutely the opportunity for corruption, or at the very least for people's judgment to become clouded.
And there's been reports from Washington reporters about meetings with everyone from him to AOC, all of you in a room. I know you can't say everything you're talking about back there, but kind of what's that been like?
One of the fun things about this issue, besides just that it's a good, righteous cause, is that the coalition of people who have come together in support of banning members of Congress from trading stocks is a very diverse coalition. So we have Freedom Caucus members from the far right of the House, like Chip Roy and Tim Burchett. We have very progressive members like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Pramila Jayapal. We have some people in the middle, like Brian Fitzpatrick. And so it's a very ideologically diverse group, which is fun. And what I say is that the real dividing line on this issue is not left or right. It's who went to Washington to try to be a change agent and shake things up versus who is wedded to the status quo. And so I'm very proud to be leading this coalition of change agents who want to shake things up, who come from both the right and the left and the middle. There are people who are wedded to the status quo who we have to convince, but I think we can. As for why we have gained momentum this year, I think a couple of things. First of all, we have seen both from Congress and from the Trump administration surprise announcements that have moved the stock market. When Donald Trump first announced the broad-based tariffs that he has put into place, the market plunged. Then, a couple days later, he announced that he was reversing a lot of those tariffs, and the market shot back up. Anybody who had prior knowledge of either of those announcements could have made a lot of money based on that inside information. There have been other times in Congress that there have been things put in bills, like pharmacy benefit manager reform, that were put into a bill and then taken out. The stocks of those companies that were potentially impacted went down and then went back up. Again, anybody who had early knowledge of what would have been in those bills could have profited. And so I think that episodes like that reminded the public and reminded the media that this is a very real live issue that deserves scrutiny. What has happened since then over the last couple months is that for the first time, some of the top leaders of both parties have come out in favor of a stock trading ban. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House, was the first leader of either party in either chamber to come out in favor of a ban. He did that earlier this spring. Shortly after that, President Trump came out and said that he supported banning members of Congress from trading stocks. After that, Speaker Johnson said that at least in concept he was supportive. So we have real momentum here because for the first time you see leaders in both parties saying, yeah, this is probably something that we should do.
The name you didn't say that I'm just curious about is former Speaker Pelosi, who is a constant talking point on the right about her stock portfolio. We won't litigate what's true, what's false about how she's invested her money, but is it easier now that she's not the speaker when it's often perceived among Democrats as an attack on her to do this?
Well, first of all, members of Congress from both parties are trading stocks. And one of the things that I have agreed to with Chip Roy, my Republican co-lead in this effort, is that we are not going to call out individual members by name because we understand that this has to be a bipartisan effort to get a bill passed. That being said, I think it was a missed opportunity that Democrats did not pass a stock trading ban when Democrats were in control of Congress. If Republicans fail to do it in this Congress, that will be a missed opportunity for them as well. You know, people in this country are hungry for change. They want reform. They want ethics in government again. And whichever party actually delivers on this when they are in control, I think will have a very good story to tell the voters. So, as far as the prospects for passage, I do believe that if Speaker Johnson gets us a vote, that we can get this passed. But that's not to say that it's going to be easy, because one of the things that you find in this issue is that those of us who support members of Congress from being banned from trading stocks, we tend to be very vocal that we support a stock trading ban. Those who are opposed to a stock trading ban tend to be very quiet, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. There are still opponents out there who are trying to sink this effort, but I do believe ultimately that if Speaker Johnson has the courage to give us a vote, that the public pressure will be so overwhelming that we will be able to get this done.
You mentioned going around, it's something people get excited about at town halls when you're talking to constituents. Do you ever run into an average voter who tells you they don't want you doing this or opposes this?
No.
Never?
No, the closest I get, in terms of average members of the public who are skeptical, it's not that they disagree with the issue. It's not that they think that members of Congress should be trading stocks. The question that I get is, why are you focused on this instead of all of the corruption coming out of the White House or the Supreme Court? And my answer to that is we've got to do both. Like, yes, I think that the corruption coming out of the White House is off the charts. You've got the President of the United States selling cryptocurrency to we don't even know who, foreign agents, organized crime figures, putting that money in his pocket. You've got a Supreme Court where there also have been reports that justices have taken essentially bribes from entities that have business in front of the court. But what I would say is, for those of us who are concerned about corruption in the executive branch and the judicial branch, we will have much more credibility as members of Congress, as Democrats, if we show that we're willing to clean up our own house as well. Because otherwise, I think the average person looks at this and just sees a bunch of politicians pointing fingers at each other. We have to show that we are willing to clean up our own house in order to have the credibility to also call out the corruption coming from the White House or from the judiciary.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, Governor Dan McKee's monthly visit on 12 News at 4. Governor Dan McKee's monthly visit on 12 News at 4. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This week, Governor Dan McKee joined anchor Kim Kalunian for his monthly visit on 12 News at 4. Kim asked the governor about the Trump administration's efforts to dismantle offshore wind projects, COVID vaccine availability in Rhode Island, and more.
So you shared a letter that you wrote today to the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, about the administration's stop work order on Revolution Wind. And you mentioned that you spoke with him over the phone last week. First, can you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
So Secretary Burgum's former governor, so I've had conversations with him before this, but I certainly have let him know that this is costing us jobs. It's costing us, people are going to get hurt in the pocketbooks because the energy that they're shutting down is 10 cents a kilowatt, which is better than what we had coming up this winter. And he's open to information, so we've provided him with a full timeline. I don't think there's a full understanding that the project is 80% complete. The transmission lines are 90% complete. So we've sent him a timeline along with photos. So, you know, photos say they say 1,000 words or whatever it is. A photo says 1,000 words. I think our photos we sent them say about 10,000 words. And
you also mentioned at the end of the letter that you'd like to have a face-to-face meeting with President Trump. Has there been any response to that request or the letter otherwise? No, we've responded. In conversations with Ned Lamont and other governors, we made the request to meet with the president. We made that request to the White House Chief of Staff. And also reiterated that in my conversation with Secretary Burgum on Friday, but no response so far. And we did also reach out to the White House about that letter. They sent us a statement but did not respond to your request for that face-to-face meeting. We know the administration is also pulling more than $11 million from the port of Davisville. Are you worried that more dominoes are going to fall? Yes, I mean, I met with Steve King today from Quonset talking about that $11 million. That's going to impact, again, more jobs, more infrastructure improvements, progress that we're making right now, at Quonset. Relative to new businesses that are showing up there. We had the ribbon cutting the other day. That's a major defense industry investment that's being made there, and so we're very concerned about what the impact this could have on our business community, and again, back on the wind, it's going to hurt people in the pocketbooks, which we're trying to contain, a lower cost for our ratepayers. This is going to do exactly the opposite. Switching gears, there is a lot going on in the vaccine space. Today, the Boston Globe is reporting that Governor Maura Healey has signed an executive order essentially guaranteeing that everyone over the age of 5 in Massachusetts who wants a COVID shot can get one despite federal guidance. The Globe is also reporting that health officials from multiple states met last week in Providence to talk about coordinating efforts. Where does Rhode Island stand? Will you be taking similar actions like Governor Healey? Well, our Department of Health has already clarified that anybody over, I think it's 5 to 6 months old, we're recommending that vaccines be used, especially on the COVID. So we're going to continue that policy, Kim. I don't see any reason to reverse that at all. We're happy with the fact that we want to keep people safe, just like I did when I came into office, right? Sure. Took us from one of the worst vaccinated states in the country to one of the very best. So you think current policy in Rhode Island is already strong enough to guarantee if people want a COVID shot, they can get one despite what the federal government is saying? Yes, at this point in time, I do believe that's true, and we're going to follow the lead of the doctors and the professionals in that area, and our Rhode Island Department of Health leads the way. Any sense of how the states will be coordinating anything else that came out of that meeting last week? Well, I think we're going to continue to work together, just like we are on the wind, or on labor. We've made a statement with multiple governors. We're certainly in direct contact with all the governors in the region, and we'll continue to reinforce the fact. Look, we want to be healthy. I mean, that's that's like the third tenet of our 2030 plan, right? Raise academic outcomes, raising incomes, and making sure we're healthy. So vaccinations do that, and we're going to continue to follow the lead of the professionals and the doctors that are at Department of Health and also right in the state. You faced some criticism lately for the way in which you've brought back Stephen Pryor as the Commerce Secretary, again, having him start immediately without Senate confirmation. The Senate's attorneys and Common Cause Rhode Island say you don't have the authority to do so. You disagree. You say you do. But Common Cause says that's gaslighting the public. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I really can't respond to Common Cause. Look, we know that we're on solid ground. We follow the attorneys in our office. This is past practice. I did the same thing with Secretary Gott. It announced it in November and wasn't confirmed until March. So it's the same thing. We know that we're on solid ground, and we are certainly working with the Senate to make sure that the confirmation is done in a timely way. If they come back early, we've already put Stefan's name in. If they come back in January, which I think they will, more likely be in January, we've got the name in and we'll go through a confirmation process. And we've talked to the Senate President. I have talked to the leadership, with Leader Saccone as well as David Takoyan, Senator Takoyan. So we're all on the same page. We're going to make this work, and we don't want to impede the progress that we're making at Commerce with these businesses like Breeze Air and Andril and Organogenesis, and the list is very long, and we're looking forward to continue that progress with Stefan as the secretary. We're
basically out of time, but I've been getting some questions about Hasbro. Any further conversations with them lately about where their headquarters is going to be? We have no update on that at all, so we're as much in the dark as you are, Kim. All right. But we'll keep on pursuing that opportunity as we are with all opportunities to bring jobs to the state of Oregon. All right, we will wait and see. Governor Dan McKee, thanks so much for being here. Thanks, Kim.
Quick reminder, that interview was taped on Wednesday, so check with WPRI.com for any updates, especially with the vaccine mandate. When we come back, a battle over offshore wind. Target 12 investigator Eli Sherman joins us next on Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. I'm joined by Target 12 investigator Eli Sherman. Before we get to it, going in the break, I said the phrase vaccine mandate, meant to say vaccine availability. Just a quick correction. All right, Eli, you're here because Attorney General Peter Neronha and offshore wind company Ørsted are suing the Trump administration over their efforts to halt offshore wind projects. Before we get to the lawsuit, let's set the stage. Roughly how many offshore wind projects do we have in the region right now?
Yeah, it's a big deal, Tim. There are about 10 different projects that are in different stages of getting set up. Some of them, one of them, South Fork Wind, is actually operational, feeding power into the grid on Long Island.
That's a very small one, right?
It's powering, I think, about 70,000 homes, so it's substantial. Then there's the smaller one, of course, the first in the nation off of Block Island that got running several years ago. That was the sort of the launching point of the whole industry. But we're talking about power here that is going to generate power in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, in Connecticut, in New York, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of homes. So these states have been betting big on power offshore right now.
All right, so it was a top story much of the week, but if folks missed it, what did the Trump administration do to trigger these lawsuits we're going to talk about?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, they ordered they issued a stop work order on Revolution Wind, which is sort of the next project that was supposed to come online. Project officials said it was 80% done, so this came as quite a surprise to them, even though the Trump administration has been positioning that they've been wanting to review all of the permits that have gone out for offshore wind ever since back in January, Tim. So, they've been waiting. This was a big hit when they ordered it, and because, people were working on these projects every single day. The stop work order comes. That means everything has to stop, all the contracts that exist for the business, everyone going out there on a daily basis, all of that had to come to a halt.
People are not working. I know it's a stop work order, but I want to be clear. People are not working on these projects right now because of that.
Correct.
All right, it's a big deal. All right, so as we said, this prompted a couple of lawsuits. I want to play a little bit of sound here, including, once again, from Attorney General Peter Neronha. He held a news conference on Thursday. Here's a quick bit of that.
You can't run a government like a yo-yo. The president may be like a yo-yo, bouncing back and forth between positions, whether it be tariffs, foreign policy, or anything else. And if he wants to behave like a yo-yo, that's up to him. But you can't run government that way. That's what the Administrative Procedures Act and other federal statutes at play here are about. That decision-making has to be rational.
So the Attorney General, Eli, has brought over 30 suits or so against the Trump administration. Now, most are with other states, but upwards of 10 are led by Rhode Island. And it was interesting, he said at the news conference, without those complaints that he's filed against the administration, the state would have lost $650 million. So he says so far those lawsuits have secured that amount of money for Rhode Island. With the wind farm projects, what is the thrust of Norona's legal argument here.
Yeah, well, you heard him say it there in the bite. He's really using the Administrative Procedures Act, federal law that basically means you have to follow the rules. And, the point that he keeps making is that this project was 80% done. It went through a very vigorous regulatory process, a permitting process that took 9 years, and it cost the companies millions and millions and millions of dollars. It was reviewed by the Department of Defense. It was reviewed by the Department of the Interior, which is now the agency putting it on pause. And what Norona is arguing, along with the Attorney General in Connecticut, is that that's arbitrary and capricious, right? So that isn't allowed under the APA, essentially.
So look, offshore wind farms have faced very strong opposition from the fishing industry. Certain concerns people have raised about potential environmental impacts. There's been talk of, concern about whales. Those things were studied over that 9-year period. Just to be clear, the stop work order, did it mention any of did the Trump administration say this is why we're stopping these jobs?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big point of contention for both Norona and all of the elected officials who are all Democrats in Rhode Island, the state leaders and congressional leaders, is that it wasn't very clear. They brought up the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, which is what allows all these projects to happen, and they also brought up sort of vaguely national security concerns, but they haven't explained what those security concerns are very well. And so that's the thing that you keep hearing Norona and the congressional leaders sort of harp on, is if you're going to stop this, give us a good reason. Don't just sort of vaguely come up with some issues that you see out here in the water. And it can't be ignored too, Tim, that at the same time that this is happening, that there is an effort to expand on other sources of energy, such as gas. There's an effort to actually bring in a natural gas line from Pennsylvania into New England. And so you see perhaps that there may be some negotiations going on in the background to bring in other types of energy that are not offshore wind and more popular with the Trump administration.
Got 30 seconds here, Eli. Your show, Behind the Story. Last week you actually talked about this topic. Who did you have on?
Yeah, we had Anastasia Lennon on from the New Bedford Light. She covers offshore wind, and it was very timely. I encourage everyone to go check it out because she's very knowledgeable in this topic.
All right, so you can see on the screen right there, 12 Plus app is how you can watch Eli's show, Behind the Story. It also airs Sundays at 8 o'clock. On Fox Providence, and 11 o'clock on the CW. Ian Donis, I believe, is on the
That's right,
show this
Talking
week.
Politics.
All right, Eli Sherman, thanks so much. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.